What's happening everyone, my name is Alex and welcome back to a new review. For today I have another budget-friendly phone from China called the Nubia Z17 Mini. Now if you've seen my review of the Nubia M2, well, this phone is very similar, but with this one we get a faster processor, we get the Snapdragon 652 and we also get NFC, and all that for around $170 to $180. So for the price this phone offers really good value. Aside from that, we get 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of internal storage, and as we've seen in the past, out of that 64 gigs of internal storage we only have about 53 gigs left after the operating system. Now the phone can also take an SD card, but that SD card cannot be used as internal storage, so you can still save music and pictures on the SD card, but you're not going to be able to install apps on it. The phone is also running Android 6.0.1, and I don't believe that this phone will ever get any updates, so if you need the latest and greatest operating system, this phone is definitely not gonna be for you. Moving to the front of the device, there we have a 5.2-inch screen. This screen has a resolution of 1080p, the colors are super vibrant, the viewing angles are great, but the screen doesn't get super bright, so whenever you take this phone outside it is a bit difficult to see it, but other than that the screen is pretty awesome. The screen sensitivity is on par with much more expensive devices, and the screen can register up to 10 touches at the same time. Now unfortunately we don't get that 18:9 screen ratio, so we get that older looking screen with a 16:9 screen ratio. So for some people this may not be acceptable, and as I said before, if that's not acceptable or the operating system, this phone is probably not gonna be for you. And just before we go any further, can you help me out by pressing that like button and maybe subscribing if you haven't done so already, because it's gonna help the video quite a lot. And now we should go back to the video. And moving just below the screen, there we have the navigation button. So the navigation buttons light up, and the home button is actually the notification light as well. So whenever you get a text message or any notification, that home button will also flash. And those buttons can also be moved around from the software. So if you need the back button on the other side or the multitasking button on the other side, that can be done from the software. The front-facing camera, it's a 16 megapixel sensor with the f2.0, and the front-facing camera does okay as long as you have plenty of light. I mean, the dynamic range isn't that great, but at least the pictures are sharp enough. Now unfortunately the camera doesn't do that great in low light, so the pictures become a bit blurry and grainy. And of course the pictures that you've just seen were taken with this device. Just like the Nubia M2, the phone's body is made out of metal, so the back and the sides are made out of metal, and the phone is also very light. It only weighs about 152 grams, and holding this phone in one hand and using it with one hand, it's actually possible, so the phone is that small. Now on the right hand side we have the power button and the volume keys, and the buttons are also made out of metal and they're nice and clicky. At the top we have what could be a secondary microphone and a 3.5mm audio jack, and the sound quality from that audio jack is pretty good as well, and it's great to see a 3.5mm audio jack, because that's something that we don't usually see these days. Moving to the left hand side of the phone, there we have the slot for the SIM card, so this device can take either 2 SIM cards or a SIM card and an SD card. And moving all the way to the bottom, there we have the microphone, the speaker and the USB-C charging port. So first things first, this phone supports OTG, so you can plug in any USB stick and the phone can read whatever you have on that USB stick, and it also supports fast charging. So charging the device from 0 to 100 is done in just under 2 hours, which is not bad. Luckily you don't have to charge this phone very often, so inside this phone we have a 2950 mAh battery, and on one charge you can go for about a day and get between 6 and 7 hours of screen on time, and I guess that's not bad, and it's actually better than a lot of flagships today. But it's not going to be as good as something that you'd get on the Xiaomi Redmi 5 for example, but good enough for this phone in my opinion. And I forgot to talk about the speaker. So the speaker is sitting at the bottom here. It gets fairly loud, but it's just one tiny little speaker, and whenever you're holding the phone like this, it's kind of easy to cover that speaker as well. But here is a quick sample so you can hear for yourself how the speaker sounds. And we are moving on to the back of the device. So first of all, the back of the device looks great as long as you keep it clean, but keeping this phone clean is close to impossible, so keep that in mind. You're probably better off to get a case for it or something like that, because otherwise it doesn't look that great. So on the back there we have the flash, we have two 13 megapixel cameras, and we also have the fingerprint scanner. Now the fingerprint scanner is accurate every single time, and it's also pretty quick and much quicker than a lot of other budget phones that I tried in the past. But it's not going to be as quick as a flagship device, but overall better than a lot of other phones. Alright, so the camera app, it's pretty quick at focusing and taking pictures, and we also have a Pro mode in there and Auto HDR, and it's great to have Auto HDR because you just don't have to turn it on and off and so on. The phone also supports 4K recordings, and next I want to show you a quick recording that I've done with this phone so you can see how a 4K recording from it looks like. Alright, we have a very quick recording with the Nubia Z17 Mini. So I'm currently recording in 4K at 30 frames per second, but from the looks of it, we don't have any type of image stabilization. So if you're walking or anything like that, the footage is not gonna look that smooth. But this is how a 4K sample from this device looks like. Since we have two cameras on the back, of course the phone can take some pictures to the portrait mode or the bokeh mode, however you like to call it. Now the pictures that you're gonna take with it look okay, but the edges around the subjects aren't perfect. So I've definitely seen better in the past, but I guess they are acceptable for a phone around $180. As for the regular looking pictures, so the pictures that you're going to take with the main camera on the back of the device, those ones look great as long as you have plenty of light. So first of all, the colors are super accurate, the pictures are very sharp as well, and the dynamic range is better than most budget phones that I've tried in the past. Now, unfortunately, whenever it gets dark, the pictures don't look that great anymore. So you're going to notice that the pictures are a bit out of focus, a bit blurry, and a bit grainy here and there. So this phone is not going to be the best phone to take pictures in low light, but for daytime the pictures do look very, very good. As I mentioned earlier, the phone is running Android 6.0.1, and we also have Nubia's own skin on top of that Android 6. And I have to be honest, I'm not a big fan of Nubia's skin. Now you can always install Nova Launcher and change the way the phone looks and feels, but since we have that Snapdragon 652, you don't actually feel the phone slowing down from that skin. And I've also tried running the Antutu benchmark and the Geekbench 4 on it, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get a score for the Antutu benchmark, but I did get a score for the Geekbench 4, and the score was quite high as well. Multitasking works great as well, and the phone even has a split screen function, but of course that's not native for Android 6, that's something built in by Nubia themselves. And that one actually works pretty good, but once again we have a fairly powerful CPU, and that's why that one works good as well. So overall, the Nubia UI is not that bad. Opening apps is done in a decent enough time, but of course it's not going to be as fast as you would get it on a flagship, but fast enough for that Snapdragon 652. Now what I was the most impressed about was how smooth all the applications work. So you wait a couple of seconds after you open an app, and scrolling up and down works extremely well, even zooming in, zooming out. So I was quite impressed to see that, and of course that has to do with that Snapdragon 652, which is an octa-core CPU, and that's not a slow CPU by any means. Even the gaming performance is better than I was expecting, so I got to play PUBG on this device among other games, but that was the heaviest one, and I got to play it at the medium settings. Now on the medium settings you may notice a couple of skipped frames here and there, but it does pretty good in my opinion, but the phone does get quite hot around the back, around the fingerprint scanner whenever you're playing games, so keep that in mind. But overall for gaming this phone will do better than a lot of other budget phones that I've tried from China in the past. Moving on to the GPS unit inside this phone. So it only takes the phone a couple of seconds to find your location, and once your location is found it doesn't seem to lose it no matter where you go, and of course using Google Maps or anything like that works good without any issues. So I'm quite impressed with the GPS unit inside it. As for sensors, well, the phone has all the sensors that you would find in a flagship device, including a gyroscope, so you could technically use this phone as a VR headset. For connectivity, we get dual band Wi-Fi, we get 4G connectivity, and we even get NFC, and all that for about $170 to $180, so quite unexpected. The NFC works great for transferring files and even making purchases with Google Pay, so quite impressed about that. As for the speeds over the 4G network and the dual band Wi-Fi are better than other budget phones that I tried in the past, so really no complaints. And it's time to conclude this video. So for the price, I don't really have any bad things to say about this phone because you can't exactly get anything better for about $170. I wish the rear cameras would do a bit better in low light, because if I remember right, the Nubia M2 used to do a bit better in low light, but other than that, the phone is pretty awesome. It's fast, the battery life is good, the phone looks very premium, it doesn't look like a phone for around $170, and yeah, the phone is pretty awesome. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, press that like button, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.